you guys what we've done wrong and what we've also failed in. So that you guys can take the positives, ignore the negatives. So I have a presentation to share with you guys. So I'll just do that now. Just let me know whether you can see my presentation screen.
Yes, we can.
All right. Sawa. So feel free to ask me any questions as we go through this. At any point, just ask a question in the chat, and then I'll be ready to answer it. In the same way, I want this to be very interactive. So I will also ask you guys questions and kindly join in as much as you can. Sawa. So today I want us to talk about finding the right co-founder for you and your business. And secondly, also building a team that will help propel your business forward. For those of you who have a co-founder, how did you know you needed one? Please share your answers in the chat. I'd like to see some of the reasons why we got co-founders. I'm waiting on you guys. Robert Matano says they needed expertise in their team, so that's why they got their co-founder. So it probably says that their co-founder is very good at the particular thing that they do. I don't know if I should try and pronounce Freja's second name, but they say that I knew I didn't have all the answers to all the problems and wanted a partner in crime. That's a very good reason. Emmanuel Mariaria, good name, says because the startup competition required a team. That's an interesting reason again. Rafael Marambi says, Rafael here, the CEO, co-founder, Egypt Voucher. Egypt Voucher. I don't know if I'm saying this the right way, but expertise, programming, and business acumen. Okay. Sarah Chalo says that they are creative they are the creative in their team and they needed somebody with a business mind. That's a very good reason. Carol Kanye says to help share expenses of developing the team. Yeah, another good reason. Raphael says it's e-gift voucher. Okay. Abai from Huduma Faster. My co-founder and I came up with the idea. She's good with marketing and communications. And she's good on software development and managing businesses. Yes, that's another very good reason. Sharing the workload and getting everybody who's good at each particular facet of their business. Victor Morage did it for company registration requirements. That's nice. Residence Technologies to share business stress, a very valid reason. Washington Mageto, probably the last one that will take. He needed to launch in other countries, and the law required him to sell 30% to locals, which is varying. So he's looking for a co-founder from my campus mates in those countries. Oh, I see. This is good for me. Yeah, I see. That also makes a lot of sense. Okay. So all those answers that you had are very valid. And so for me, I think I want to look at this from 2 points of view. One, there's what we call a buzz factor. Buzz factor is, so if you are a single founder and right now, just after this Zoom call, you're crossing the road, going home, and you get hit by a bus. So what happens to your company? That's the end of your company if you are a sole founder, unless you have a very good team behind you. So that's one of the big reasons why you should get a co-founder. Unaweza pata corona, uenda ulale hosi wiki tatu. What happens to your company then? Especially if you're in the early stages and you and your team are doing, the founding team are doing everything in the business. The second point I like to look at this to really show why you need a co-founder is from an investor's point of view. A lot of investors, will hardly touch a company with a single founder, because one of the things they like to ask is, if you couldn't even convince one other friend to join you on this, why should you be convinced? So as well, they want to look at the first item, which is bus factor or the continuity. You may be ill, a lot of things will happen. So, there's need for continuity in your company. Your company needs to outgrow you. So those, among your reasons and the reasons that I had, I think when you look at this, you'll see that now I think we'll both agree that it's very important to get a co-founder. But how many is too many? Is it okay to have 6 co-founders? Is it okay to have 10? Is it okay to have just 1 or 2 or 3? That will leave to your interpretation, but that will leave to your own interpretation. But ideally, you do want either 1 co-founder or 2 co-founders. I guess once it gets to once you start getting to around 4, then probably you're starting to be on the red zone of too many. There's a really nice quote from Benjamin Chong that says, choosing a co-founder is like selecting a life partner. I know you guys will agree the same as well. Some of my friends tell me that, some of my friends that are also run startups and have co-founders tell me that, if you're able to find a co-founder and to work with them very well, and for years and years down the line, that's probably an indicator that, hey, you are going to have a very strong marriage, because the same way marriage is very hard, the same way that working with someone for a very long time is also very, very hard. So, a co-founder is someone that you end up spending most of your life with. You speak to them when you wake up, you speak to them before you go to sleep. No difference with a marriage partner. So when looking for a co-founder, what do you look for? I like to get your answers on this, guys. What do you look for in a co-founder? Kamau says he can't hear me. Can you other guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Josh.
Okay. All right, guys, your answers on what do you look for when you're looking for a co-founder? Eric says one with a similar interest. Faith can hear me fine. Raphael, you can hear me fine as well. The strategic vision is most important for Raphael. Kamau, maybe you'd like to log in and log out again. Abraham Kilonzo will be looking for a like-minded person. Dream Alignment says Residence Technologies. Victor Murage says they want somebody who answers their phone, and they had a very big problem with that in their first company. I know how frustrating that can be, I tell you. Calling someone that you're working on something with, and you really can't reach them. I think I used to have the same problem, and I used to be the one who's not answering my phone because I felt like the other but he was nagging me too much. And then I realized that, hey, it's like a marriage. They will nag you and you've always got to be there. That's the first thing that you really got to do. Like pick up your phone. They might be spewing a lot of nonsense, but just listen to it. Collins says they will look for one who's almost like him. Why, Collins? And define almost like you. Faith wants someone who is genuine and has integrity. She's had people try to take advantage of her. Pole sana. All right, I think we can proceed. I like all your answers. All your answers are pretty valid. I'm probably expecting a follow-on answer from Collins. But yeah, let's move on. So in any team, there are any founding team, there are three roles that make up the perfect founding team. This is according to a lot of research done, not my research, other people's research, and they've seen this to be the perfect founding team. So a team with a visionary, a team with a hustler, and a team with a hacker. So a visionary is most often the CEO, but not always. Think of the visionary as the heartbeat of the team. They are the person who bears the vision. They're the person who thinks about the big picture. They're the person who comes up with the strategy and lays out a very good plan of implementing the same. So think of the visionary as the person who inspires the team. If I can give you an example, a visionary would be someone, say, like Steve Jobs. You can see the kind of role that Steve Jobs used to play in his company, where he was the visionary. The hustler ni ule the person that focuses on the details, that person that is everywhere. So they can almost fill all the roles in the team. They are very active. They are very fast. They are the jack of all trades. They are that guy who knows the guy who knows the guy who knows the guy, and they are very good with day-to-day operations. Endless energy. They never tire doing any task. And lastly, we have the hacker. The hacker is the guy who likes to focus or will focus on just one thing, and that's the product. So if your startup is a technology startup, the hacker is ideally that guy who knows the technology in and out. If your startup is, say, in the medical space, the hacker will be that guy who knows that particular field very, very well. So the hacker is ideally the product owner. They are the person they are the expert in what you guys are doing. So the visionary will inspire you. The hustler will make sure that all the parts fits together and will have to do the dirty job when it requires to be done. While the hacker is the one who really, really knows the product and the ins and outs of the product. Let me know in the comments, in the chat, if any of your teams, if you feel any of your teams have this perfect combination. And sometimes this doesn't have to be 3 people. You can have 2 people, but one is both the visionary and the hacker. And other times you can have someone who's both. So this doesn't mean that you have to be 3 people and you have to and these roles have to be divided out like this, no. But at least within the team, you have to bear out these functions. Moving on, I'd like to talk a bit about co-founders' roles. And yeah, please.
Sorry, we have a question there from Paul.
Go for it. Just a minute, let me read it out. Paul. Will you?
Okay, sure. He says he has a question. Then he says, you need a co-founder, but you do not have one who fits in your already pool of friends or colleagues. How do you go about this?
All right, please come again. Just so we make sure that everyone has heard it very well. or I read it, I see it now. So Paul asks, if you need a co-founder, but you do not have one who fits in your already pool of friends or colleagues, how do you go about this? All right, I'll help to answer this, and also everyone else can also type in their answers. So you have a co-founder, but you need a co-founder, but they do not, none of the people that are in your pool of friends or colleagues fit that. So one of the ways you can do is you can attend networking sessions around your field, meet new people. I mean, I guess the answer is just meet new people, meet more people, because you know that person is out there, but you haven't met them yet. So I guess just go out there and try to meet them. So best place to meet them will probably be in startup competitions. There are a lot of people that are also looking for other co-founders. In co-working spaces like the iHub, NILAB used to be. Yeah, those are what I can think of right now. But let's help Paul with this question. If you think about other places where they can find co-founders. All right. Freja says it's like dating. How do you look for your significant other? I think that's very true. Some of us will go to look for that significant other in a church. Others will go to look for them in a bar. Fugazi. So yeah, I think that answers your question. All right. Yeah, sure. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. All right. So two important things. It's very important to ensure that every co-founder has clear responsibilities. And secondly, especially the CEO, you need to establish a reporting system and KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators, and we'll go through them in detail a bit later in the presentation. But then just to give you an example of, say, how I have managed to assign clear responsibilities in my team. In my team, we are two founders or co-founders, myself and my co-founder called Brian. I take care of the technology and the marketing, and Brian takes care of the logistics and HR. So it's very, very clear that if, say, we have a problem with our marketing, we're not reaching enough people, that Brian needs to call me out on this. If something is failing our logistics, we're not serving our customers very well, we are not keeping time, etc., then it means that I'm going to Brian for this. So, I mean, that's just the high level. But then again, you've got to also, nail it down and go through all the day-to-day activities and say, for instance, between myself and Brian, who's in charge of hiring and firing. Yes, he's not in charge of HR, but does he take up that function alone? Or do we hire together? Do we fire together? So these things, it's important to nail down all these things and make sure that the roles are very clear for everyone. So ideally, don't think of your co-founder as just somebody who's helping you with the business. No, they need to have their own functions. Everybody needs to have their own functions. Now, as much as possible, try to get someone who you have complementary skill sets with. Otherwise, you don't want somebody who's exactly like you because you've just duplicated yourself. You want somebody who offers something different in your team. There are no other questions. We'll proceed. So guys, I want us to talk about equity or shareholding. And this is always a very touchy subject for everyone. What fears do you guys have around giving someone ownership of your company? So you've started a company today, you get a co-founder, you need to allocate them some shares. Why don't you give them 80% and keep 20%? I mean, why don't you be just nice guys and do that? So what are the fears that you have around giving somebody ownership of your company? My fear is that this person could kick me out at some point. I mean, this happens. It happens a lot, actually. Another fear I have is you could give somebody a bit of ownership, then they leave tomorrow. So what happens then? I also share that fear. I hope you guys can hear me well.
Yes, we can, Joshua, loud and clear.
Okay. I'll try to be louder. I think Ashley says they can't hear me very well. Sylvia, sorry, I keep asking you guys this, but let me know if you can hear me better now. I've changed my microphone to the default in the computer.
We can hear you loud and clear, Josh.
All right, thank you for that confirmation. Ashley, no, Sylvia says you were checking out Kejamove and you got an interesting response. So, I mean, just to be clear, my first company was called Kejamove, and it is from Kejamove that we pivoted to my current company right now, or current solution right now, which is Kejamove. The website is kejamove.com. So I no longer run Kejamove, and I mean, if you guys would want to learn why and some of the reasons why we moved on from that company to what I'm doing now, I'd be ready to answer later on. Colin says his fear is being knocked out after some time. Raphael says, yes, that's the fear for equity, ownership, and bringing in new partners. Mostly loss of control and also misaligned vision, clashes and being sold out. Some people lack staying power and so on. Also fear of bringing in toxic personalities, for example, bringing in a wolf or someone without integrity. I see, yeah. It's so tiring having to watch your back. You need people you can trust. I agree with you, Raphael, 200%. Resident technology says they can become a pain in the future, so I need to be in control when that happens. Fade says, my fear, the person completely changes the mission and vision of the company. True. Thank you, Freja, for sharing the link to Kejamove. I mean, it's ideal if we have still kept the kejahunt.com domain, but yeah, a lot went into that, and I mean, I'd be open to sharing. I'd be open to sharing this maybe later on. Yes. Ashil Kibali, I'm glad that the volume is very clear right now for you. Esther says, diluting yourself prematurely before having good valuation. Very valid response as well. Thank you, Freja, for sharing that. Yeah, guys, it's kejamove.com, not kejahunt.com. We used to own the domain, we no longer do for kejahunt.com. All right, so moving on. When dividing equity, there are two ways that a lot of people use. I mean, you might not know the terms that are used here, but I'm sure you guys have probably used this. The first one is the slicing pie way. That is where your percentage share of the reward is equals to your percentage share of what's at risk. So, I mean, this basically says if I'm, say, contributing 100K, then if the company is worth 200K and I'm contributing 100K, that means I should get 50% of the company, right? So it's the percentage of the reward is equal towards that risk. You can also look at it as if it's a technology company and I'm coming in with all the technology, then I should probably own a bigger percentage of the company. That's one way of looking at it. The second way is the Michael Sabel way. Michael Sabel is the CEO of Y Combinator. Y Combinator is a startup accelerator that has accelerated so many startups, or invested in so many startups that have worked out very well. And I think the latest is Sam Gishuru startup. Sam Gishuru is the CEO of Nilab, and he has a startup called Kidato, and I think it's in the current cohort of Y Combinator. But so what Michael Siebel advises is to do this 50-50. So it doesn't matter the expertise that you have right now. It doesn't matter how much capital you're bringing in right now, but to go into this 50-50. A lot of you will disagree with this, I am sure, because everybody feels that what they bring to the team, everybody feels much more than the other person. So this is very hard to do, and if you ask me my personal recommendation, it will be 50-50, and let me tell you why. When starting a startup, the work that needs to be done has not been done on day one. The work is in the future. So if the work will be done in the future, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years from now, then right now, we can't really say that, hey, you're the one doing most of the work right now, so you're going to get 80%. That changes often in the future. So, but why I prefer going 50-50 someone who's starting a company, this is basically, it's you giving the other person trust and saying, hey, listen, especially if you are the stronger party, if you're the one coming up with, if you're the stronger party at that particular discussion, you're showing trust to the other partner by saying, hey, I'm going to give you 50% of this. We know this could be worth everything, or it could be worth zero, but let's all put in equal work towards this, and let's all get equal rewards. So I don't know what worked for you guys. If you'd like to share that, you can let me know. Do you guys want to take like a 1-minute break? Victoria?
No, I think we can proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on to legal matters when it comes to startups. And I think we're almost done. We're probably going to do 2 or 3 more slides, if you guys aren't as tired as I am already. So importantly, some of the things that people fight on about are patents, licenses, intellectual property, domains, picture rights, etc. So it's very important that you make sure that these things belong to the company and not to a particular individual. So for instance, I'll give you an example. With Kejamove, we have, there are some licenses that I came up with, or maybe to be more direct, the name Kejamove is a trademark that I came up with, but I do not own. That is owned by the company. Because if I do own that trademark and one day I decide to leave the company and go do something else, maybe do a company that competes with Kejamove, that puts Kejamove at a very high disadvantage. So I mean, some of the times with companies, it's about putting yourself at risk, but doing this so that this baby that is your company can always survive. Vesting and cliffs, these are absolutely critical that all the shares have to be vested, including yours. I think we'll go into vesting and cliffs a bit later in the presentation, and also we'll also talk about employee stock ownership. All right, so let's get to teams and building teams and hiring your first employees. So what has worked for me is that, or what worked for me when we are hiring our first employees is, one, start with your personal network, keep your objective and vision very clear, find fit by filling gaps and attacking weaknesses. So, I mean, to just emphasize on this, look at before hiring, for instance, if you're a two-team person, one is working on the technology, the other is working on the marketing. Does it make sense that you first hire somebody working on the technology? No. Or somebody working on marketing? No. So there's probably a gap when it comes to, you probably need somebody working on the field or something like that. So make sure that you're filling in the gaps and not just hiring somebody who's just like you. Okay. Personalities need to be balanced across the team, very importantly. The same thing here. I mean, you need to look at things like, I'm Kamba. I probably don't want many Kambas in my team, because then we'll all be thinking in a certain way. Also, probably don't want, I'm introvert. I don't want a lot of introverts in my team as well. So we need to balance out personalities across the team, and also identities maybe. Consider making use of consultants or contractors for non-key roles. Yes, very critical, very, very critical in the early stage. So if there are skills that you can get through subcontractors, if say you don't have a technical person in your team and you need somebody to build a website, and your solution has nothing to do with technology, all you need is a website that to be out there. You don't need a co-founder to do that. I mean, if that skill is within a team, perfect. But if you don't have that skill within the team, so if it's a role that somebody is going to play for a very short time and then move on, you don't need that person to be a co-founder. So, I mean, you'd rather pay somebody a little bit, wafanye your kazi, then you move forward. So I think what I'm trying to say is, when you're looking for co-founders, make sure that their roles are going to, there's longevity in their roles. All right, so move on to one of my favorite topics, which is employee stock ownership. And I think I'll start off with a question. Have you guys given shares to your employees, or do you even think that is important at all? Please let me know in the chat. So have you given any shares to your employees, and will you even consider that? And as we do this, as we answer this question, we can take a 1-minute break. All right, we can proceed now. So I'll read some of your answers. Rafael Marambi earlier said 50-50 absolutely makes sense because 100% of your nothing is still nothing and you need your co-founders. That's very true. Emilia Passiani says that yes, they've given some shares to their employees. I'd like to hear about how you've done it. Victor Murage says, I think giving shares to employees is a good idea as a way to incentivize them. Very true. They have a question. How do you handle a situation where the employee leaves or moves to another organization? Thank you for posing that question. We'll answer it. Peter Pillar says, yes, had considered that until we evaluated on their performance. And as I can say, I won't consider that option as a startup. Okay, good to hear that. Resident Technology says, I have a still think it's a key motivating factor to your starting team. Starting team. All right. Thank you for those answers. So this is one of those questions where it's basically, it depends on what you want in your team. The importance of allocating shares to employees is that one, you get motivated people that are going to stay with you for the long term. To give you an example with Kejamove, is one of our developers who was very, very good, only stayed with our team for a very long time. I mean, they're no longer with us now, but they stayed for more, I think for about 4 years, despite receiving very good offers from elsewhere. The only reason they stayed is because we are allocating them shares. And I mean, this does not mean you allocate them 10%, 20%, 30%. This can be as small as 0.92%. I mean, when that grows, it could become really valuable, you know? So this is one of the ways to motivate your employees. And secondly, and even more importantly, what we call sweat equity. Sweat equity is a non-monetary benefits that a company's stakeholders give in labor and time rather than a monetary contribution. So sweat equity is a tool that you can use to get the best people in the market. And this is how you do this. Say the market rate for hiring a very good developer is 200,000 Kenya shillings. You can't get, and probably you found someone that is very good, but they won't come in just as your co-founder because they have a very good job elsewhere. So one of the things you could do is tell them, hey, listen, your market rate is 200K. I'll pay you 100K, but the extra 100K that I would have paid you goes towards sort of buying yourself shares in our company. So rather than me paying you market rate, I will pay you much, much less. But then again, I will, instead of giving you cash, I will give you shares in our company. So that's the discussion that works very well, especially when your company has been funded and you're in space where you really need to compete and you really need the best people in the market. So yeah. Lastly, I think unless there are any, oh, have I answered? There's a question I haven't answered.
Yeah, I think it was the question that Victor posed. How do you handle a situation where the employee leaves or moves to another organization?
All right. So yeah, Victor, how do you handle a situation where your employee leaves or moves to another organization and they have shares in your company? So I'd like to introduce to you guys what's called, I think we have talked about it, what's called a vesting contract or a vesting schedule. So a vesting contract is a contract between you, your co-founder, and anybody that has shares in the team. So basically what the vesting contract says is, so say me and Victor start a company, and this is day one of starting the company. I don't know Victor, Victor does not know me. Then we decide, hey, we're going 50-50 on this company. We sign the documents and everything is legal. So what happens if Victor leaves tomorrow or I leave tomorrow? So a vesting schedule helps you to look at such situations. So what a vesting schedule will be able to say is, yes, I own 50% of the company, but I will only get this 50% over 5 years. So if I leave after 1 year, what do I get? That's a fifth of 50%, that's 10%. So in the next year, 2022, I earn the next 10%. The next year, I earn the next 10%, evo. So that makes sure, that helps you get in a position where people are not just leaving your company willy-nilly. And secondly, if your co-founder leaves, the company still keeps all the, I mean, a good chunk of the shares. I had a problem with this in my first company. One of our co-founders left actually almost immediately after we had signed the agreements. I mean, it's like they were waiting for us final on the agreements, then they moved them to another job. So we didn't have a vesting schedule, and we really had to do so many boardroom fights to be able to get them to give some of the shares back. So it's very, very important to always have a vesting contract. And I mean, if you ask yourself, maybe you've not done a vesting contract now and you've already signed everything. Yes, it is possible to go back and change the agreements that you had to ensure that they have vesting contract. And this applies for everybody, including the founder, the co-founder, the person who came up with it, everybody, the CEO, everybody that has shares in the company. I'll tell you for free that, I mean, I started my company, but right now I don't own all of the shares that I will have, because we invested over a very long period. And I mean, that is a very good motivator because it keeps me here, because I know that I have no other option but for my company to grow. And that's the same for my co-founders. Now, secondly, under vesting contracts, we have what we call a cliff like CLIFFS. Well, in plural. So a cliff basically says, so yeah, every other year we are earning a percentage of our shares. So 10% every year, for instance. But then we can say, if any of me or Victor decides to leave before we get to 1.5 years, then we forfeit all the shares that we will have earned. So what a cliff does, it gets idea, say for instance, in that time when one of our co-founders left just after signing the agreement. So what a cliff will do is it will make sure that your co-founders will stay for a long time, at least for the founding period when you really have to put in a lot of work, the first year, the second year, make sure that they stay. And if they don't stay, you still keep the shares so that you can allocate this to other co-founders, future co-founders, or future investors. I hope that's clear. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Perfect. So we'll move on to our last slide, which is about keeping your team accountable. I think you guys might have gone through this in one of the sessions that you've had, but there's a lot of information also that you can find online about setting KPIs. KPIs are very important. KPIs, or key performance indicators, these are like the goals that you give to your team. And ideally, you also don't just give goals to your team. Your team comes up with goals, and then you approve this together. So it's important for KPIs, very important for them to be SMART. SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. If you can go this just one by one. Specific, ideally that means, what it means is be clear. Make sure that, be clear with each KPI. Be clear what each KPI will measure. So key performance indicator, I don't know if really I have nailed this down very well for you guys, but if let's give an example of goal. So say I give the goal to the company that we founded with Victor. Let's say Victor's goal becomes to acquire customers. So Victor's role is to get us customers. Is this a very good goal? What do you guys think? If just given Victor the goal, acquire customers. Let me know in the chat. Do you think this is a very good goal? Yes or no? Rafael says, no, it's too vague. Esther says, no, how do you measure this? No, the answers, let's proceed. Yes, I agree with both Rafael and Esther. A goal of acquire customers is not specific. It's not measurable. It is achievable, yes, but to what extent? It is relevant and it is not time bound. You need to make sure that your goal has those 5 things, and you have a very good goal. I think unless we have any questions, we'll probably come to the end of our presentation today. So Victoria will probably take over, and as you let us know what lessons you'll take away from today's session and apply to your businesses. Also at this point, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yes, Josh, there are some questions that we have in the Q&A section.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see them.
Just give me a minute, let me find it. All right, I see. Victor's question. Victor asks, for a company registered in Kenya, do you need to update your records with the company's registration office every time shares vest? No, you do not need to update your records, because your records will be very clear that, I mean, in the offices will know that me and Victor own this company 50-50. That's what is the office knows. But then we have our own shareholders agreements that says we only earn this 50. We are going to earn, each of us are going to earn these shares in the next, say, 5 years or 10 years. So the registrar doesn't need to know that, because the shareholders agreement usually supersedes the what is this document called? Is a business or company registration document. I think, is it K12 or something like that? the shareholders agreement always supersedes that official document with the company registrar's office. Someone asks, when considering giving shares to your employees, should you consider your exit plan, like in case you as an owner sell of the business? I don't know if this question is very clear. When considering giving shares to employees, should you consider your exit plan in case you as an owner sell of the business? Yeah, I think, if you do plan to sell the business down the line, you'd want to have taken care of your employees. The CR12 was the document I was trying to, name of the document I was trying to find. The shareholders agreement always supersedes the CR12. So the CR12 is what it's a document that you will find at the registrar's office. Thank you, Nesfori Mwambai, for that, and Raphael. So yes, you should consider your exit plan, because what are exit plans? An exit plan could be, you could plan to sell the company, you could plan to keep the company as a lifestyle business. That's where you can, ni kama duka ya mtaani venye unaweza pata, it gives you income all your life. So yeah, I think as you're giving shares to employees, you'd probably want to be in a space where you've taken care of them, yeah, whichever way it is. I don't know if I answered that the right way. Someone asks, same as the contracts, are they binding to the new owner of the business? Give the initial owner sell of the business. No. Shareholders agreements are between those shareholders. So if those shareholders are left and we have other owners taking over the business, then they will set their own rules going forward. I think I've answered all the questions unless there are any more. Nesfori Mumbai asks, if I have a team, do I require a co-founder? I have a team, do I require a co-founder? Yes, you do require a co-founder if you have a team as well, for some of the reasons that we might have answered earlier. Like, for instance, some of the reasons that we talked about were, say, the bus factor. If you get hit by a bus tomorrow and you leave and you say you're the only founder, and of course, there are some key things that only you know. So what happens then? So, this is not like a black or white answer. I have seen teams that have done very well with no co-founders. So it does not mean that it's black or white. It's for your interpretation and for your decision. Raphael asks, do you have a law firm you know, or a lawyer very good in tech matters? Yes, I can probably share one or two contacts after this. I'll share them with Victoria and then she'll share them with you. Does a team comprise of mentors or advisors? Mentors or advisors are probably people that you do want on your board. So later down the line when you're setting up your board, you'll probably want some of these people in your board. Somebody anonymous asks, does the 50-50 agreement have any disadvantages in the long run? Yes, it does have a lot of, it does have some disadvantages. For instance, if this co-founder turns out to be someone who's not really pulling their weight, and yet they have 50% of the company, then that becomes a very hard discussion to have. But the good thing is, if you paired your shareholders agreement with a vesting schedule, By the end of the 1 year, if this person is not pulling their weight and you've tried if you really tried to make them do what they're supposed to do, but you really tried everything, then, you can get to the discussion where do they leave now, after 1 year, after 2 years. The good thing is that you still keep a majority of the shares within the company. So yeah, the disadvantage is that if that other person turns out to be not the person you are looking for, you have given out quite a bit of shares. So that's a disadvantage I can see. I'm waiting for your questions. Someone asks, if you always put the proceeds back to the business and your co-founder does not, can the business likely die? So you put the proceeds back to the business and the co-founder does not, can the business likely die? So importantly, the proceeds, these are the profits that you get from your business. It's important from day one to know that the profits are not yours, they belong to the company. So everybody in the company needs to have a salary that is set. And so if we make $1 million in profit this month and my salary is 10,000 Kenya shillings, my salary remains as 10,000 Kenya shillings and the rest goes back into the business. That's how you grow your business. Otherwise, you don't just dip into your business because you have money. No, this business, take care of your business and it will come back to take care of you. That's something that I like to say. So yeah, both of you should, you should be putting your proceeds back to the business. It goes without saying, but just make sure that you take care of yourselves, but then you take care of yourselves in a structured way. You have salaries for every other month, whether you make profits or you make losses, and you make that structured out there. And it's important to do this from day one, because I think the businesses that I've seen that on a deliver based on what they get on that month, it's hard to grow a business that way because you will grow yourself, but it will be really hard for you to grow the business in that way. Resident Technologies asks, how many shares are you supposed to issue when incorporating your company to avoid fractions when an investor comes in? I really can't tell you like there's a right number of shares to issue. Just don't issue too many shares. I found a lot of people issue either 600 or 1,000 shares. Personally, I issue in companies that I start, I issue 1,000 shares. 600 goes to the founding team, and 400 is left for employee stock options and also for future investors. So just don't issue a lot of shares from day one.
Joshua, we have a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
There's a question from Robert Matano. I don't know if you can see it in the chat.
I see it. All right, so Robert Matano asks, wants me to share high-level processes of forming a board and some of the best practices to be observed from experience. What a high-level process. I don't know what high-level processes you need to form a board, but how did I form my board? One of the people in my board is Sam Gishuru, and I just gave him a call and said, hey, Sam, I like you in my board, and it's because of 1, 2, 3. And I followed it up with an email saying, hey, I like you in the board. I'd like, this will be your roles, and we are not going to pay you anything. We ideally want your advice. And maybe later on, when the company starts to make good money, we are definitely going to pay you something for the board, etc. So a board, think of a board as people that you go to when you need advice. So a board can be made up of, say, 5 or 6 people, and these are key people that you think that are key one in the market that you're playing in. So if you're in tech, you need somebody who's really good in tech. If you want to raise funds, it will help very well if you can get somebody that you know is very good at raising funds in your board. So yeah, very good for the board to be industry specific, as well as to be people that you can approach Mazay on a one-to-one, and even in your lowest moments, and they will help you. From experience, I think don't be too pushy with people. If you want them on your board and they don't want to be there, let them be, find somebody else. You don't people on your board that you control. I mean, later on but from day one, you want people that you listen to, you know. You don't want yes people. You want people that you'll go to with the best, an idea that you think is best, and they'll tell you no, because that will get you thinking. So I'm thinking that's the kind of makeup that you want for people in your board. Eric O says, I need to have a co-founder who is visionary, hustler, and hacker. And that to me makes sense. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can find all these qualities in one person, and when you find that person, keep that person. I don't know if there are questions, any more questions that I have not answered. Yeah, I see a question from someone who's anonymous. Can board members demand equity? Demand, no. They probably won't demand equity. Do you want to give them equity? Maybe no. But then if you do give them equity, make sure that it's really, really small, less than 10%. Because, I mean, while they have a role to play, you want to keep as much equity either unallocated or allocated to the right people. So yeah, if a board member is demanding equity, you also want to ask the question, are they being greedy? Because, I mean, in the first year, ideally, what you want to, you're also gauging each other. You want to see, is this board member going to be of any help to my team? So if they demand equity from day one, you give them equity, and then anytime that you go to them for advice, they are not available, then what does that say? So I usually just do a heart-to-heart conversation with them and say, hey, I'm willing to offer you equity down the line, but ideally, I just want to be able to come to you now. I mean, I could come to you once a month, once every 2 months, and just for advice, you know? So yes, I mean, yes and no. Sometimes offer them equity. If they've been valuable for a long time, then yes, you do want to give them maybe 2% or something like that. Just don't offer too much equity. What type of contract should an organization craft for board members? A lawyer can help you with this. A lawyer can help you with this, at least really the official kind of documents or contracts. But I mean, sometimes a lawyer can help you with this. A lawyer can help you with this. Just don't make it too, don't make it too much. Just make it a one-pager that says, hey, I want you in my board. I mean, by joining this board, your roles will be 1, 2, 3, and our roles to you will be 1, 2, 3. But don't put a lot of legalese. People don't read these things, and people don't want to be bothered to read these things. So just make it a one-pager. That's very simple. That just says, I mean, it can be the invite letter to them that says, hi, I want you in my board for, yeah, this company, your role will be a board member. And I will expect 1, 2, 3 things from you. And we will also offer 1, 2, 3 things to you. Bas. Robert Matano asks, what type of contract should an organization craft for board members? Which is what we've just answered. I don't think there's any other question. Peter Pila, you asked whether the slides will be shared with you. I think that's Victoria's prerogative.
Yes. We will share with you the output. So we will share the recording of this webinar. We will also share like the slides and like some additional resources that you can tap into as far as this subject of conversation today is concerned. So guys, are we all out of questions?
There's one more from an anonymous attendee, okay, who asks, in instances where a VC gets a seat in the board in exchange for investment, does it give them an upper hand over founders? Not necessarily. So when you're setting up your board, there's what will probably come to, which is voting rights. And it's probably one of the things that Mark Zuckerberg has gotten very well, because he has control of his board, yet he owns very little of his company. So shareholding does not relate to voting rights as well. You can own 1% of your company, but have all the voting rights. And one thing I like to say is that control of a board is not about equity. It's not about how much you earn. We see this a lot in movies that say that if someone owns 50% plus one of the company, then they have control. No, there's a clause that you can set in your rules, in your whatever, that basically says that gives you voting control. So ideally you'd want what of course the VCs will push you. They want control as well. You want control as well. You want control to be with the founding team. So, but if you're a good negotiator, you can get clauses that say the founders get 60% of the voting rights. And so that basically says if you and your founder are on the same page, then you have control. So yeah, does the VC always get who gets a seat in the board for investment? Does this always give them an upper hand? No, it doesn't. But then as well, just contradict myself a bit. The minute that you receive funding for your company, you lose control of your company. You morally and psychologically and stuff like that, because if someone has given you money, it's hard to go to them always and just say, no, this is how I want things to be. So you may not always maintain control, and that's okay. That's okay. Just make sure that by the time that you're losing control, like don't lose control from day one. Lose control later on, you've grown your company now, you've gotten all the value that you want from that company. So if you're getting your second investment and already you've lost control in terms of, say you've raised 50,000 USD. This also depends on how much your company is worth, but say you've just raised 50,000 USD and already you've been diluted to the point of 10% in your company. It's probably not what you want to do. You want to lose control later or not in the initial stages. Yeah. So Victoria.